Hi, everyone. I'm Steve Adubato. We're joined all the way from Washington, doing his job, Congressman Josh Gottheimer, a Democrat based in Bergen County. Congressman, good to see you.
Hi, Steve. Thanks for having me.
Good to have you. Hey, so look, right behind you, the finding common ground on your left and the gridlock on your right, whatever that is. Are you serious? Is that just wishful thinking, or how much of that is going on in Congress?
More than you'd see on cable news, I'll tell you that much, or on social media.
Okay, so now it's those of us in the media.
I didn't say you. I said, listen,
give us a
you're reasonable. You're reasonable. You're the proof that there's reason still, even in a lot of people who just like to focus on the people throwing mud at each other. You know, if you look at the debt ceiling deal, which we just got done recently.
I was just going to talk to you about that. Break it down, not in congressional language, but in real people language, so we can understand. What is the deal and why does it matter, Congressman?
So the debt ceiling deal, just for those who don't spend time watching C-SPAN, basically every year we as Congress have to do a budget and appropriate resources for everything from our roads to Social Security, you name it. And then what happens is at the end of the year, you got to pay the bill on your credit card, the nation's credit card. And if you hit your debt limit, hit on how much your borrowing limit is, like on your credit card, you got to make sure that you pay your bill, you have enough credit. In essence, what some folks wanted to do on the extreme right was say, you know, I know we spent the money, but now we don't want to pay our credit card bill. A bunch of us got together, Democrats and Republicans, and figured out a way that would not only help pay down the debt of our country in the short term, but also focus on long-term debt to make sure that we think about our children and grandchildren and pay our bill now and not put the full faith and credit of the country at risk. So it was the way things should get done. Democrats and Republicans sitting down, working it out.
Is that what, quote unquote, the Problem Solvers Caucus that you've been a key part of for the last several years is all about?
Exactly what it's about. It's, you know, if you look at the last 2 years, everything on the bipartisan infrastructure deal, which funds the Gateway train tunnel and fix our roads and bridges and water, to the PACT Act to help our veterans, to electoral reform, all of these pieces of legislation, to the CHIPS Act to build semiconductors in the United States, all done in a bipartisan way, all done with us sitting at the table working together. And that I co-chair that group, and it's the best work I focus on here.
So I want to ask you about some other, I don't want to say local issues, but regional issues like congestion and pricing in just a second.
Sure.
I'm curious about this. You're a policy, not a wonk, but you care deeply about policy. You went to Congress to try to make a difference. You have other colleagues, both sides of the aisle, but someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene or Congresswoman Boebert, and people can research who these people are and what they've said, but when they say things that have nothing to do with policy and everything to do with, it seems to some folks, to be attacking be in a personal fashion that's very polarizing in the eyes of many, what goes on in your mind?
I think, listen, whenever you see,
because they're not alone, by the way, they're not alone.
No, there's groups of folks who are just extremists, and they're not here to legislate or get things done.
Both sides of the aisle.
Forward, we got people on both sides who are extremists, and frankly, although I don't like to compare Marjorie Taylor Greene to others on our side, but I'll tell you, when you've got a few people who are just out of touch with where the country is, and they just want to make news by saying the most incendiary, crazy things they can say, you know, it's obviously you get what they're here for. They're just here to make news and get headlines and not actually to solve problems for the country or for the people they represent. So, you know, what do? I find that incredibly frustrating, but just a few voices, Steve, right? And you realize that most folks are here for the right reason, you know, whether to do a bipartisan gun safety bill, like which we ask Congress, or, you know, that's the kind of stuff that I believe we should be focused on, you know, fighting for the people you represent, not trying to, you know, get more Twitter followers and say something crazy on social media.
I promise we're getting to congestion pricing and some of those other issues in a second, but one of your colleagues on the Democratic side, and this is not a cable news tit for tat, let's find some conflict, but Congressman Jayapal, Israel is a racist state. You heard it?
Yep,
I saw it.
Yep.
It's what she said. How is that possibly a way to have a meaningful dialogue?
It's not. And we came out swiftly, as did Hakeem Jeffries in our leadership, and make it clear not only is Israel not a racist nation, but beyond that, how critically important the U.S.-Israel relationship is to America's national security. to our fight against terror in the region, to the advancement of democracy in the region. Israel, remains a beacon of democracy, the only democracy in the region, but critical to our security at home. And so we came out swiftly and strongly. Pramila retracted her statement, and the bottom line is, this is going to happen. And the question is, how do you handle issues like this? And I think our party acted quickly because the Democratic Party stands with the U.S.-Israel relationship and understands its importance for our country.
What is congestion pricing? Why does it matter, particularly those in northern New Jersey who cross over the Hudson River to get into New York for one reason or another, please?
So the congestion tax is a new tax that the New York City, working with the MTA, which is their transit system, wants to impose starting
Metropolitan Transit Authority.
Yeah, exactly. Starting next year on all commuters who go into New York City south of 60th. They'll be charged not only the $17 to go over the bridge or through the tunnels, but an additional $23 tax to go into New York City, $40 a day. That's an additional $5,000 a year of post-tax income. It's outrageous. You're talking about hitting everyone from nurses to restaurant workers to hardworking folks in labor. And the only reason they're doing it, they admit it, the governor of New York admits it, it's a cash grab for New York. They are literally have a $2 billion a year hole in their MTA, in their transit system, because it's so mismanaged. It's a complete mess. They lost $700 million last year to fare skippers, people who rode and didn't even pay. So what we've said is, I don't think so, New York. You got problems. You're not going to solve it on our back. And especially, Steve, to add to that, the MTA issued a report to the federal government that admitted it's not only going to add more traffic, but it's not going to reduce congestion, and it's bad for the environment. It will lead to more cancer-causing pollution in northern New Jersey and the outer boroughs of New York.
How do you stop it? It's a New York thing. They can make their own policies, their own laws. How do you stop it?
Well, I take a different perspective on that. We've got a 100+ year cooperative with the Port Authority, right? We work together in our roads, the bridges in the area of New York City.
1921 compact between the two states.
The port, the airports, the bus terminal. We work together on this region where 20% of America's GDP runs through. You can't decide one day to say, yeah, I know that cooperative relationship, we're going to throw it out the window. So you're going to see the governor of New Jersey take legal action. He's already announced that. I think that's exactly the right move. Working with some mayors on additional legal action. We've introduced legislation in Congress to defund the MTA's federal dollars they get. They get $2 billion a year from us in the federal government. There's no way folks in Jersey should be paying their bill twice. And I think it's completely outrageous what they're doing. This is not the way to have a collegial relationship with your neighbor, of where, by the way, we have so many people commute in and contribute to their economy every single day, including $2 billion a year in income tax to New York from Jersey residents. So it's outrageous. We're going to fight this thing to the death.
Congressman, I'll come back to local issues in just a minute, but do this for us. I heard some of your colleagues, many of your colleagues, some would argue too many of your colleagues who argue, what are we doing in Ukraine? What are we doing helping in the war between Russia and Ukraine? Ukraine and the invasion of Russia into Ukraine. What's going on there matters to Americans, particularly those in this region, is?
I sit on the Intelligence Committee. Let me just tell you, I don't understand that argument at all. Those who question what we're doing in an area where not only is it teaching us a lot about Russia and their weaknesses, but you can't allow Russia just to try to run over another country, and then the risk of that spreading to our European allies and them going further would be unacceptable. You've got Russia, the heinous crimes and activity they're committing in Ukraine not only has to be checked by us and by our allies, but Putin's got to be checked, and you can't allow him, who has obviously gotten very close to our #1 adversary, China. You worry a lot, and Iran. You worry a lot about, if he's not stopped, where he would go.
I'm going to talk to you about the police, the Invest to Protect Act in just a minute, but to those who, and this is not a political prognostication question or horse race stuff, but if in fact the election in 2024 is between President Biden and former President Trump, just assume this for a second. I've asked many Democratic leaders this question, and I need to ask you because you're always pretty direct and honest. President Biden, do you have any concerns about his cognitive abilities to be president, particularly on the back end of a second term if he's 86 years old? And I don't mean 86 in general. I mean President Biden at 86.
And I've spent a lot of time with him working on all this bipartisan legislation that I just mentioned, whether it's infrastructure or gun safety or chips. I'll tell you, and on this debt, most recently on this debt ceiling deal, I have no issue at all with his ability to actually do his job, and he's been doing a phenomenal job, and the record speaks for itself. And, you know, in terms of if it's Trump, Biden will win.
Why are you so confident of that, Congressman?
Because when you look at the record we have and you look at what the former president has not only has been doing, but continues to do and his activity. And this is, the country wants common sense, not extremism. They want people, folk who put the country first always. And I believe that's what President Biden does. I believe those are the values that he shares, things that we fight for, versus extremism and attacking people and putting people down and acting unpresidential. To me, that's not what the country wants. They want people who are bridge builders. And I think that's what we need more than ever right now in this country. We need to come together and realize that China is the enemy, the government over there, not one another.
Yeah,
right?
By the way, our coverage of the 2024...
how great this country is. And it's time we remember that and celebrate it.
Sorry for interrupting, Congressman. By the way, our coverage of the 2024 election will be policy-oriented, particularly as it relates to the New York, New Jersey region, especially New Jersey. Real quick on this, Congressman. You've been involved in an initiative, Invest to Protect Act. What does it have to do with police departments and the way they operate, particularly in communities like Paterson, where the state government, the attorney general has stepped in? Real concerns about how minority citizens are being treated in certain communities. Please, Congressman, got a minute left.
Sure. The Invest to Protect Act actually puts more resources into training, to mental health resources for officers, and retention and recruitment. Deadly shootings are up 70% in Jersey in the last year. Bergen County, auto theft up 50%. You've got more law enforcement leaving with 47% fewer folks staying. We've got more retirements way up. We need good officers. We need officers to stay on the job, and we need them well trained. And I think that's what I believe in. You know, they get our backs every single day. We got to make sure that we give them the tools they need to be trained and to protect us and to protect themselves. And we're lucky to have the best cops in Jersey. And, you know, along with firefighters and first responders, we're lucky overall. But the bottom line is we've got a lot of small departments who need help and resources. This Invest Protect Act gives smaller departments the resources they need to provide all this training, mental health services, and retention recruitment services.
Congressman Josh Gottheimer, I want to thank you so much for joining us once again. We look forward to talking to you again. Thank you, Congressman.
Take care, man.
You got it. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Think Tank with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation. Funding has been provided by Holy Name, Johnson & Johnson, New Jersey Sharing Network, Veolia, the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, Operating Engineers, Local 825, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, Kane University, New Brunswick Development Corporation, and by these public-spirited organizations, individuals, and associations committed to informing New Jersey citizens about the important issues facing the Garden State, and by Employers Association of New Jersey. Promotional support provided by NorthJersey.com and Local IQ, and by New Jersey Globe.
I am alive today thanks to my kidney donor. I am traveling and more active than ever before.
I'm alive today thanks to my heart donor. I'm full of energy and back singing in my church choir.
I'm alive today thanks to my lung donor. I'm breathing easy and I'm enjoying life's precious moments.
There are about 4,000 people in New Jersey waiting for a life-saving transplant.
Donation needs diversity. For more information or to become an organ and tissue donor, visit njsharingnetwork.org.